I haven't been inside of a Mormon temple for almost 10 years, and once you're no longer living up to the worthiness standards, you're not allowed to go inside. But yesterday, for the first time in many, many years, I finally went inside for the first time. And I went along with my friends here, Jordan and McKay. They also got married in the temple, and they also have not been back since they left the church years ago. Thank you to Jordan and McKay for joining us today. We're going to give a debrief on what our experience was like going into the temple. If you all could just introduce yourselves.
I'm McKay.
I'm Jordan.
And we have a YouTube channel called Viral Virtue with Jordan and McKay.
And I would love for you all to explain what temples are exactly. Like, what's a Mormon temple?
It's important to realize that there are Mormon temples and there are Mormon meeting houses. There are far more Mormon meeting houses than there are temples. So if you have seen what you think to be a temple and it wasn't really like a spectacular experience, it was probably just a meeting house. The meeting houses are where the congregation gathers, they do their Sunday meetings and everything like that, whereas the temples are regarded as God's house, where they go to, quote, perform sacred ordinances and make sacred covenants with God himself, and those are kind of covenants that they're supposed to live up to for the remainder of their lifetime in order to get their exaltation in heaven.
And while Mormon church houses, on the front, you'll usually see a big sign that say visitors welcome. Temples are no visitors allowed. If you attempted to go in one, you would be quickly turned away. But there's one time where outsiders are allowed to enter the temple.
So open houses are kind of unique because it's really your only opportunity that you'll ever get to go inside a temple if you're not a member. And so basically before the temple is dedicated, before they give it its kind of special member status, regular, normal people who aren't members are allowed to kind of go in and take a tour. And so you can kind of look around, you get to see all the rooms. They'll kind of describe things to you and give you some insights into like what the rooms are for and like how they're used by members in a very kind of simplified way.
Yeah, it's like a tour without telling you much about what the building
Yes.
is for. It's like a very secretive tour where they use a lot of code words or like euphemisms, and they don't fully explain it, but you at least get to walk through.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did yesterday. We walked through the Grand Junction Colorado Temple. It was announced in 2021, and it is the third Mormon temple in Colorado. And so today we're going to share our experiences from the open house, what surprised us, how it felt to go back in after all these years, and more. So yesterday, Jordan and McKay drove up from Denver. I flew into Grand Junction. And how are you all feeling as you made the long drive up?
It was a little nerve-wracking, I'm going to be honest, because it's like, we're going behind enemy lines. And I know for a fact there are like media channels that are owned by the church that are aware of the things that we do, and especially what you do as well. And it's like, are people gonna kind of know who we are and maybe have some feelings about that?
Yeah, I definitely took my anxiety medication. You guys, when you picked me up from the airport, you seemed so chill. And then when we first got there, Jordan was like, oh, I'm kind of nervous. And I was like, thank you so much for saying that, because I'm really nervous too. Because we didn't even meet. We met for the first time yesterday too. So I think we all were feeling a bit anxious. And if you want to share your tattoo.
Oh, of course, even in the 85-degree heat in Grand Junction, I had to wear some long sleeves because I have a symbol that pertains to one of the secret sacred temple ordinances. So it's kind of a little like...
We said no short sleeves allowed.
Yeah. I also took out my nose ring. I got my little Clark Kent glasses on. You
made
wore
sure
a
I wore long
skirt.
sleeves.
Yeah, so we were trying to fly under the radar, though I think we all look not Mormon enough at this point that we probably still were sticking out a bit.
Yeah.
And what I was surprised by is that we were not the only somewhat antagonistic force to visit the temple that day, because there was someone there handing out Christian literature that was against the temple. And he actually gave us some... It seems to be essentially Christian literature that is speaking out against Mormon temples. Do you remember from when you'd be at something like General Conference or a temple open house and you'd see protesters?
Yes, I totally...
And what's that what was your memory as a kid seeing that?
I'm sure it's exactly the kind of thing that I would see in the comments nowadays, which is like, do you have a life? Why are you so miserable that you need to come out here and do this kind of thing? Kind of situation.
At least that's how we made sense of it in the
Right.
member brain at the time.
Yeah, I feel like I'd always be like, of course they're persecuting the truth.
Yes. That means that we are doing the right thing.
Yeah, if there's no opposition, then what does that mean?
Opposition in all things. Exactly.
Yeah, so I thought it was quite interesting because they also seem to have designed it to almost look like it is a pro-LDS publication. And then if you open it up and start reading some of the quotes, you're quick to realize they're not endorsing the temple. So what did you guys notice as we started walking up into, like, we parked the car and then what happened?
I feel like the in-group, out-group feeling is really exemplified when we do these kinds of things, because you're like, we're parking, we're seeing all the people go in, and I mean, you can tell the members, right? Like it's very obviously Mormon people, and it becomes kind of this weird divide feeling that exists of like, we're not really in this group anymore. And it becomes the paranoia of, are they going to be able to tell that we're not in this group anymore?
The interesting part is it is completely mundane at this point, where I feel like you're going into them and they all feel the same on the outside. And I guess when you're in the in-group, that's probably kind of a special thing. You're like, all of God's temples feel the same. But in my eyes, it's like, yeah, it's just another really expensive building. Great.
Yeah, I was surprised by how intense it felt to me just because of the way we were greeted. When we walked up, there were two men with sunglasses and earpieces, like FBI agents.
So serious.
A big sandwich board that was like, no phones, turn them off, no food or drink. And they were like, it felt like, having been there for a tour, it was still mostly Mormons.
Yeah.
It was not, I think we were one of the few outsiders, if not the only outsiders I really saw. And so it's funny because it felt like they immediately could tell we're not fitting the picture. And then to be greeted with like the FBI agent energy. And then do you want to share when you tried to show the tickets?
Oh,
on your
yeah.
phone?
So we you pass two different little cute Secret Service temple agents, and then you get to the door and there's another dude who's standing there. And so you have to buy tickets for, you don't have to buy them, but you have to reserve tickets for these things so that you have your time secured, right? So I pulled them up on my phone because I was like, that's what they're going to be looking for, is they want to verify these things. And so the gentleman at the door, like, I show him my phone and he's like, oh, we won't be needing that. And he was like, I need, like, turn your phone off. It's really important that you have them put away. And like went on this whole spiel about how important it is that your phone's not off. And so I literally turned my phone off in front of him. It was a very intense energy.
Yeah, it was like as soon as he saw you do this, he was like, no phones.
Yeah, it was like,
No phone.
You turn the phone and it was very obvious there's like huge QR codes. Like,
yeah, like my ticket's on there.
Trying to show, but he had to be, I don't know, he was really tall. So it was just
really tall.
From the security guards and then that guy, and then they also make you put these little white booties on your feet so you don't spoil the carpets. And I also think something about being asked, like, even as us as ex-Mormons online, when they were like, turn off your phones, I'm like, is this smart? Like, to
Should
go
we be doing that?
I don't know if I should turn off my phone and go into a building where this,
Unfamiliar.
surrounded by people who probably don't like us. But I was mostly anxious at the beginning, and then it felt like nobody recognized us. At least then nobody said anything. So then I felt a little better.
You felt okay at that point.
There were also a lot of missionaries there, but only sister missionaries, the girl missionaries, which I think is hilarious because they know that the girls are more like outsiders prefer to talk to women, I'm guessing is the calculation there. There were, how many sisters do you think there were?
There was a lot. I mean,
We saw a whole bunch of
4 or 5 pairs in the parking lot.
Yeah, while we were touring, there were at least 2 companionships that were stationed to like answer questions and stuff like that. So,
And how many elders?
none.
I think you make an interesting point about women, though, because I think they, like, they're dressed cute, they're young. I think it puts like a forward, young kind of looking vibe to the church that they probably want associated with it, versus I feel like where the elders might be more willing to like dive into gospel topic discussion, and they're like, look how cool it is, and like, can we answer any questions?
I feel like most of the time when I see media produced by missionaries, they always use girls. They always are using women. And to me, that also feels very exploitative because it's like they're saying they know that people are more likely to talk to women, and it just feels like they're using their girls as like lures to get people in the building, to get them to talk to the missionaries. And I just feel like it's even Temple Square in Salt Lake, it's always only women. And I just feel like that is such a double standard considering most missionaries, a larger percentage are men.
We may be base, vile, repugnant, apostates, but we do follow the rules.
We do.
Especially when it could be prosecutable. I'm not sure. We respected them asking us not to bring our phones out. I really wanted to take a picture of my tattoo in the Celestial Room, which we'll get to, but I did not want to get into any trouble, so it wasn't worth it. So we didn't record video. We didn't take pictures. Phones were put away. Thank you.
Yeah. When we explain what we saw inside, obviously we don't have the pictures or videos we took inside because we followed the rules. We have the videos we took outside, and then the church actually has quite a bit of photography published online. So when I show photos of what we talk about, those are the actual rooms we were in from the Grand Junction Temple. But we did decide to play by the rules, and we listened to the sandwich board and put our phones away.
We were good little ex-Mormons that day.
We're going to jump into what the experience was like once we walked through the door. But before we do, just a quick reminder to like this video, subscribe to my channel. Also, we recorded an awesome video over on Jordan and McKay's channel. You'll find it in the description below, so definitely go check out my video with them on their channel after you finish this one. So if you could share what happened just right when we first walked in.
So they open the giant, magnificent door, right? And you walk in and we're like instantly greeted by this very intense blonde woman.
She was like so close.
It was literally like, okay, let's like take a step back a little bit here. But she instantly started talking about some of the like unique things about the temple and was kind of going on this whole thing, and it was like whispery. It was that kind of voice that's usually used in the temple where it's kind of like reverent and
it's like a testimony whisper voice, like,
yes,
welcome to the temple. You're going to have a transformative time here.
Yes.
And it's very, and I think everyone we spoke to basically used that voice.
Absolutely.
Nobody was just
At
like,
least hush.
hey y'all, come
Yeah.
on.
Welcome. Let's have a good time. It was very intense. And I mean, she talked to us for a while. Like we sat there with her for a few minutes before we kind of transitioned into the next thing. But it was, I mean, you could tell they had, like, she was prepped and primed with her speech for people coming in the door.
Yeah, she also asked us why we were there today. So we shared that we grew up in the church and were curious, which is true.
We did not lie.
And then she said it was a self-guided tour, but I thought it was interesting because she was like, well, it's self-guided, so feel free to walk around. And we actually thought we'd be able to just walk through and not have anybody really talking to us. We could just go at our own pace. But every single room had multiple guides stationed who were coming up to us and talking to us and doing basically the same thing, where they come very close to you and use the whisper testimony voice. And it was strange because as an outsider, I was like, if I was actually a non-member with no familiarity with this, I would be kind of like freaked out by this experience.
Right. Yeah.
The level of intensity, the hushed approach to like, I don't know.
Well, and it feels like they should, like, I feel like especially if you're an outsider, you want to be kind of more handheld through an experience like that, because it's like, I don't know where I'm going or what I'm looking at, or am I supposed to go in here or not? And so, and from past temple tours, I feel like when we've gone on them and previously, like, I always remember having somebody with us who kind of took us through the whole thing.
One tour guide versus
yeah,
we were definitely never allowed to be alone in any room at any time. And that seemed to be basically the standard for anybody who had come to see the temple that day. What did you all think of the decor and design?
I will give some praise where praise is due. One of the things that they always talk about is they try to incorporate local elements to where the temple is. So there were a lot of design motifs that were related to the geography and like the ecology of the surrounding area, with like peach flowers. If you're from Colorado, you know about Palisade peaches, and some cactus flower. I can't remember the name.
claret cup.
The claret cup. Yeah, I've
Yes.
never. We're from Eastern Colorado, or the Eastern Slope, so I don't know anything about that. But I really do appreciate where they're trying to incorporate things that are local to the area, paintings that are based on the area and things of that nature. But again, it's still, even with those added things, it's like, yep, this is a temple. It's just, if I were teleported to this temple, I could not tell you which one I was inside unless I was clued in onto those design motifs.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because it felt very much like they had all received a script to memorize, because all of the different guides would say the same things over and over again. One of the lines was, "This wood is imported from Africa." And every time I said, "Where in Africa?" And they looked at me like they
didn't tell us that part.
Total deer in the headlights. Like, I have no idea. And I'm like, okay, Africa's pretty big.
And it's a continent, not
Yeah.
a country. There's a lot of different stuff in Africa.
And the same with a lot of the symbol, like they'd be like, look at this beautiful symbol that's on this podium or something. And you guys would ask, like, what does it mean? And they'd be like, and it was just interesting to me that they were so far removed from a lot of the symbolism that they knew to comment on it, but they didn't know what it meant or why it was there. What did you think of all the floral designs?
You were the one who...
I thought it was interesting because generally in temples, they always do something on the ceiling. Like, they always point to, like, the extravagance of doing something on the ceiling. But it did not look, and maybe this is just me being a petty ex-Mormon, I don't know, but it did not look painted on to me. It looked like they used, like, a little, like, stencils from the 90s that my grandma used to paint on the wall. But, like, that's the vibe that it gave me. But it was interesting because they pointed it out literally in every room. But beyond, like, the surface level conversation of, like, pointing it out, it's like when you start to get deeper into things like significance, they're like,
we can't speak to that.
we're not.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty,
Stay away from that.
but I think it's like, to me, I can't get away from, like, the extravagant wealth of going into the temple because of just how extravagant and intense and everything is.
Yeah.
From every room.
Yeah, I feel like the way I would describe the design is like if a retirement home was designed by the Marriotts. Like,
That's the perfect way to put it.
and it's so funny. I mean, it's, to me, the church has billions of dollars. They could hire the most talented design people in the world,
Literally.
to make these striking and engaging and interesting. And to me, it's like almost like a copy and paste of what a 70-year-old thinks looks fancy. And it almost reminded me of seeing all the pictures of the FLDS temple from the Yearning for Zion Ranch, because it's like they know certain things are fancy, but they can't execute it in a way that feels artistically done.
No.
It's like they just shove a bunch of furniture in there and they're like, let's put some, I don't know. It's not a very inspired design to me.
No.
It feels very dated, and like it's kind of like how the missionaries still, if you see missionaries, they still look like they're from the 50s. They don't look like they look like they stepped out of like a portal from the past.
Well, it's like, I mean, we talked about this yesterday, but the couches, like, there's antique looking vintage floral couches, and they're probably not vintage actually, but like you would see in a thrift shop from the 70s. Like, and they keep that in every temple, every church building. Like, I don't think they'll ever get away from the floral couch, but in terms of like the extravagance of everything else around it, it just feels misplaced.
Yeah, I would love if you shared your story about on your mission, what your living conditions were like, because I think contrasting the missionaries' living situations with the opulence of the temple shows where the priorities are, I think.
Yeah. It's funny that we go into these and we're like, oh, it's like so extravagant. And that's what they love to make it a point. They're like, this is God's house. This is, so important. We want to use all the best materials from all the places and, stone and everything like that. And to bring it back to the missionaries, just for instance, and this is my anecdotal experience, I arrived to a new area that I was assigned to, and the office missionaries had opened the door to this house that they rented sight unseen, threw 2 mattresses in there, and shut the door, and then gave me the keys a couple days later. And I walked in, and it was dustier than
And
a
no
garage.
sheets, not even
no
sheets.
sheets, nothing, not a cooktop or anything. We were just having to make do. And
Mattress on the floor.
Mattress on the floor. And this is how a lot of missionaries are living.
Yeah.
But yeah, God needs to make sure that we put booties on our feet so his house doesn't look lived in, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I was in Colorado and I still, for like 6 months, lived with a woman who was a hoarder, and it was filthy. And when I would blow my nose, it was like black. I was in a dirty, dirty place. And similarly so, older people from the church had come into that home and said, this is approved for missionaries to live in. So I get so like sick in my gut to see how much money and how much they even use the phrase, we spared no expense, when they talk about the temple. And I'm like, yeah, but like, show me where those missionaries over there live. Because I bet you didn't. I bet you can't say we spared no expense about these young people who are giving 24/7 to prop up the church, and
who are the future of the church.
Yeah, and they're not taking care of them. Part of the temple tour was taking us into the different rooms of the temple. And there are lots of things that happen in temples. The first that you do at 12 is baptisms for the dead, which is where you get baptized by proxy for the souls who have passed on. And then you are also given the special religious underwear called garments. They have the symbols in them, and you're basically supposed to wear those for 24 hours, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. You also do initiatory, so that's the washing and anointing, where they put oil on you and they say a blessing over you. They do the endowment ceremony, which is where they do the green aprons and the whole getup. And then they also do weddings. So there's actually a lot of ordinances or ceremonies that are happening in the temple throughout the week, and that's why the building is so big, is that they have to accommodate all of these different religious ceremonies. And so part of the temple tour was going to the different rooms and seeing what was within each room, and then having the people give us a little explainer. So after we went through the lobby, we went to the baptismal font. And what stood out to you all from there?
I never thought I'd see the day where a baptismal font had a infinity pool on the inside. I was absolutely blown away.
We were starstruck by that.
The baptistries are kind of interesting because they all have the same central. The baptismal font is obviously it's going to be the star of the show or whatever, but because it's so unique, they always have to make a point of it, because it is basically the size of a hot tub with stairs leading down into it, specifically down. It always has to be kind of below floor level. And then down below where everything is, it sits on top of these 12 brass were they brass? Usually they are. Sometimes they're not. Oxen that are supposed to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. The sister missionary kind of noted that they're in groups of 3. I don't think I've ever noticed that, or anyone's ever pointed that out to me. So
yeah,
in
a lot of pictures, they're just ringed
all the way around.
Right.
Yeah.
This time they were grouped in 3 to point north, south, east, and west.
Which I think is kind of cool when they kind of rearrange.
See, there is
stuff
still
like that.
some symbolism.
Yes. But I will say I kind of was probing the sister missionary to see if she knew why it was below floor level, and unfortunately she didn't. So I don't know, maybe she was just, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. It's fine. It is interesting that they're not making that point in their little like, hey, we got to talk about all the symbolism and everything of that nature. But it's interesting because it's just one big room. There are pews on one side where everyone would sit, like when you go with a group, if you're just waiting to get baptized for the dead people, you just sit and you watch. And on the other side is the stairs and the recorder who has all the names and everything like that. And then
I think there's something to be said, though, for it being the first stop on the tour. Like, it's interesting to me because, like, if I think of it in terms of being a non-member, it's probably, in my mind, the most abrasive.
Yeah, the most inaccessible to a general audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like, what is
what is going on here?
Well,
why is there a hot tub in the middle of here?
And even the term baptisms for the dead, like, obviously, anytime you say that, people are like, what are you talking about? And I also thought it was funny that the sister missionary was kind of bragging about how they sometimes do 20 baptisms for the dead at a time. And I was like, to an outside audience, I feel like someone being like, yeah, we get 20 baptisms done per person. It's like, I feel like I'd just be like, what
does
are
that
you
mean?
talking about? Like,
What is
why
going on?
why are you bragging about this high number. Like, it just makes it sound like it's a factory. Like, I did think that that was funny. And it's also funny they have benches because like whenever you're 12 years old and you do this, all your youth group watches you do baptisms for the dead. Sometimes they baptize you 10 times in a row. So you're like trying to clear the water out of your eyes. You're getting dunked 10 times. And then when you walk out, you're wearing a white jumpsuit, which it's very embarrassing to be wearing something that's soaking wet and white as a 12-year-old.
Yes.
And they have 2 witnesses who watch you. So they have to make sure you're going all the way under the water. So there's 2 men who just sit there like
Staring at you intently.
Yeah, including your hair. So
Yeah,
like,
no hair coming out.
long hair, you have to make sure it's tied up. So because if that floats up, it wasn't baptism
Doesn't
by
count.
immersion. You got to redo it.
and they have to redunk you. And it's like,
Yeah.
add another one to the list. Yeah, that really brought back a lot of memories. I also feel like sometimes when I'm doing baptism for the dead, I'm like, I can't believe Ryan Gosling probably did.
That's so real, though.
Can't believe Benson Boone once did baptism.
We all were in the weird hot tub on the
he was
couch.
backflipping down the stairs into the water.
I just like to imagine like the Mormon celebrities like, I can't believe such and such was doing this.
Yes.
Katherine Heigl.
Yes.
Then we saw the confirmation room, which had the funny little bench.
Love the funny bit.
Yeah. So the idea here is like you have to get baptized by immersion and then you receive the gift of the Holy Ghost, which is what the confirmation is. So essentially what is happening is in the same form that you're baptized, where they bring up someone's name, they say, I baptize you in the name of blank who is dead, or for blank who is dead, in the name of the Father, the Son, and of Jesus. And the Holy Ghost.
Amen.
Jesus. And then they dunk you. It's the same situation where they basically, you go in, it's just someone who is running the recorder podium, and then you have 2 priesthood holders who put their hands on your head and they pronounce this little blessing on you where they confer the gift of the Holy Ghost, and they pronounce that person a member of the Church of Jesus Christ, and you're just the stand-in body basically. And then every time they finish, they have to take their hands off. I don't know
So
why.
it's basically like someone doing.
They're like, yep.
Literally,
Just
my whole
boom,
childhood
boom,
right here. This motion brings back the memories.
So it's interesting. That one's a lot smaller. Usually you don't have people who are watching that. It's off in a separate room. Not that it needs to be like cordoned off or anything like that, but I guess it can get kind of loud with the baptistry like splashing and everything.
Splashing around.
Yeah. And just the bench that's meant for someone to sit
Yeah, the special little chair.
backwards. It
Yeah.
looked like a sex bench or something, or like a chair.
It
like,
does.
It was a very atypical looking chair. And if I like, that was another moment where I was like, I feel like I'd think this was a bit.
This
like,
is
what,
weird.
why
What
is
is
that chair there?
100%.
And I also feel like since the legacy of the FLDS temple was obviously like very insane levels of child abuse and like FBI watch list, if I was an outsider, that's what I still would probably associate temples with most closely, is the like child brides situation with Warren Jeffs. And so I just feel like sometimes when I go through, I look at it from the lens of like, what would an outsider think of this? Because to members, I think it's like, wow, the spirit is here.
So cool.
And to the rest of us, it's like, I don't know if you're pulling this off for me. Like, if you want to learn more about temples, I know we're giving brief overviews as we discuss the different rooms, but on the video that we did over on Jordan and McKay's channel, we went into some of the internet's most typically asked questions about temples. So this is just another plug for if you have more curiosity about all of these ceremonies we're talking about, because there's so many of them, we answered a lot of those questions over on their channel. So the temple also, usually they fill the temple with lots of art. Some of it typically is hand painted, but most of it are prints from other artists. So what did you all think of the art selection within this particular temple?
There was a theme, I feel like, that I noticed as we moved through the temple. There's lots of just like general landscape, like Book of Mormon story type art, which is not uncommon in the majority of them. But specifically in this temple, and I don't know if this is like a church-wide shift, I don't know if this is a Colorado-specific thing, but we noticed a lot more art depicting people of color, like primarily Black people, and then one that we noticed actually in the bride's room that I think was meant to be an Indigenous person. And so this is not, like, in thinking about the other temples that I've walked through in my life, those don't stand out to me. And so this seems to be, like, in my mind, this seems to be a very pointed choice.
Yeah, I feel like the church in more recent years has been using people of different ethnicities as PR, like on the materials that they produce, or like if they take a photo of a congregation to put on the website, the congregation is super ultra diverse in a way that I've never experienced in real life.
Yep.
And I actually went, they have a Facebook page for this temple, and I went to see, like, has a single Black person even been photographed at this temple? Because when we were there, we didn't see any Black people. And on the Facebook page, there's no Black people.
None.
There's a few Hispanic people. But to have huge, very prominent paintings of, there was one of a Black man giving a blessing to his son, and then there was another, I think she was praying. And it just, I feel like, especially with the church's long history of racism, banning Black people from even entering the temple until the late 70s, like, it just, to me, is so performative in a way that almost when you walk through, it's like, who decided to put this picture here?
Yeah.
Right. Well, and to that point, it feels like a lot of times people of color are almost used as like a prop for a lot of to kind of sweep under the rug a lot of the racist ideals of the past. When I was in Guatemala at the MTC, I went through, or maybe it was the Honduras temple, I can't remember, but one of those two Central American temples, there was a painting by Liz Lemon Swindle. You can put it up on there. It's of Jesus in his angelic form in the jungle with two indigenous children, which to a Mormon would be read as Lamanite children, which is a racist idea that the church and the Book of Mormon pushes off onto indigenous people here in America, is that they are descendants of an ancient Jew family that came from Israel and all the way on their little boats, which had not been existing yet to be able to, at least in this hemisphere, and that they were an evil people and they were cursed and had brown skin because of that. And this just kind of carries over. That was more centralized to the geography the location there, but this is more kind of broad.
Though in the bride's room, there was a painting of what seemed to be an attempt at painting an indigenous woman. But if I had to take a guess, the artist had never painted an indigenous person before. It was like they had painted a white person and then painted their skin very dark. Like I was almost like, is that a girl with a bad tan?
Like it seems very off.
And I just feel like it truly is a slap in the face with their history of racism against the priesthood ban, and then the history of racism against Native Americans. I mean, they very systematically killed and ousted all the Native Americans who were in the territory of Utah when they arrived. It's just like, I feel like now to depict that as being something that they are so like, oh, this is one big human family, it just feels so gross to me.
Well, yeah, we'll do all this damage over here, but look at the cute photo that we have on the wall over there of the Black person. You know, it's like, it's very not, like, it gives a very off-putting vibe.
Another painting we saw was in the confirmation room. There were paintings of Joseph Smith getting the priesthood power from some angels, basically. And in both paintings on either side of the room, Joseph Smith had a very prominent top hat next to him, what did you all take away from that?
Them trying to include the hat that Joseph Smith would put his peepstone into and how he supposedly translated the Book of Mormon. Because growing up in our generation, it was not a common idea that they were willing to share with people that he had this magical rock and a hat that he would put his face into, and he'd see the words of the translation of the Book of Mormon and he would tell them to his scribe. So for them to be including, very obviously, because you look at like the statues that used to be in Temple Square of the saint that are depicting the same moments, they don't have things like that were very obvious. So it's really pointed decision for them to be like,
well, it's like shifting the discourse. Can we like very discreetly put this in the painting so when it comes up and people are like, I've never heard of the hats before. Where the hell did the hats come from? And then they're like, but it's even in the temple. We had it in the photos. You just didn't see it.
That's on you. Yeah, it's like an opportunity for gaslighting.
Yes.
Yeah, in one of the Joseph Smith films, when he meets Emma for the first time, he has like a huge shovel and he's all dirty. And I feel like that's a clear hint toward his treasure digging past and the fact that he was searching for hidden buried treasure using his peepstone, and they're showing him as a treasure digger, which is how he met Emma, was through being hired to find buried treasure, and he lived near Emma basically at the time in her family. But I think the church is trying to slowly pivot the messaging so that they can say, look, we've been talking about it, and if you didn't notice that
That's on you.
Joseph Smith put a rock in a hat and put his face in the hat to translate the Book of Mormon, that's on you.
You just must not have been listening, because we definitely talked about that.
I also noticed that as we were going through, one of the most common pitches on top of the African wood, which was, they had the script, like I was saying, another common thing was to have almost every single person relate the temple back to the Bible. And I thought that was pretty interesting, how often they wanted to parallel the Mormon temple to parts of the Bible. Why do you all think that they do that so carefully?
This is, I don't know. Is it kind of sad almost? It feels like this religion is losing their religion because they're trying to appeal to authority of the Bible. Especially if you've been online recently, you see a lot of Christians are very vehemently opposed to the idea that Mormons are also Christians because they don't agree with the Nicene Creed and they don't have a Trinitarian view of God and things of that nature, which makes them, fundamentally different from like Catholicism and even other Protestant sects and everything like that. So it feels like they're playing into this idea where they are trying to fit in with the rest of Christians. We do this because it's in the Bible. We have this veil, which is also in the Bible when Jesus died and everything like that. And you see that online. You see that with missionaries kind of trying to obfuscate the name of the church and say, oh, come with us for a Bible study, even though they still claim the Book of Mormon to be the keystone of their religion. It seems like the Book of Mormon has taken a back seat so that they can blend in better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really feels like they just are draping themselves in the cloak of Christianity to be more agreeable. Like, it makes them feel like they are, and I know that Mormons have long said that what happens in the temple is what happened back in Jesus's time, and that this is all part of our long-standing religious history. And yet there's a lot in the Bible to contradict what they do in the temple. Like Jesus said, you can't be married in heaven. And they're like, Mormons are just like, well, he didn't mean that.
Not that thing.
So I feel like it's very selective what they choose to highlight as, this is from the Bible. And if you were to say, well, but this other thing isn't from the Bible, they'd be like, well, that part of the Bible was not inspired. It was lost in translation. The Mormons also consistently say the Bible is not translated correctly. So, and I think that also extends to the angel Moroni on the spire.
Right.
Which was missing.
I think the current spire that they have is really lame looking. So at least Moroni was like very, it's symbolic. You pull up the church on Google Maps and that's the symbol that you see. Like, it's very symbolic just in like a cultural sense. And so for that to be missing it's kind of interesting to me.
Well, and even if you went to a military cemetery, those who were Latter-day Saints or Mormons, their headstones are adorned with the angel Moroni. So it begs the question, is even that going away? Is that some sort of thing that the families need to pay to replace because now they have the bad Moroni on their thing instead of the good Jesus?
It's why I thought it was so interesting that so few of them could speak to most of the symbolism in the temple.
Yeah.
Because it's like the church is so systematically removing all of its long-standing symbolism that the members are left with nothing. Like, they didn't even replace the angel Moroni with a cross because they demonized the cross for so long. They're not going to put a cross on the temple. No. So instead, it's just a nondescript spire, which has no symbolism. So it's like they are just almost robbing the members who want to believe of this heritage and not even replacing it with anything other than like random and vague references to the Bible that if you even asked a member like, well, what else does that same chapter, have you read that chapter of the Bible, or do you just know the single verse that the church removed from the Bible to justify this part of the temple? Because I think the answer is that they haven't even read it. So I feel like it's just becoming so devoid of meaning from top to bottom because they're forsaking the past Mormon symbolism, and they're not really replacing it with anything either.
Well, that's the interesting discussion is I feel like there are a lot of things within Mormonism that you could throw on there that would be like significant to members, but like they just decided to kind of do nothing across the board, which I think is interesting because, I mean, there's so much that they could have thrown on there that would have been significant to Mormons in some way that would be more representative of just a really pointy thing on top of a building.
Yeah, I was like, I'm sure if I asked any member here or any tour guide, so what does the spire represent? Because it was still kind of like bulbous.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
does that represent, the three kingdoms of heaven or something? And I'm sure they'd just be like, I think it's just meant to be pretty. And it feels to me like the church is like losing its soul a little bit because they can't decide
Right.
where to go from here.
Well, and I feel like it used to be like all of the motifs and symbolism were all kind of the esoteric. Like you look at the Salt Lake City Temple, for example, there's a lot of like Mormonism specific ideas, even in like the stonework on the outside, which you wouldn't know about unless you were clued in. And now it's just like, well, it's like where the Colorado River meets the other river.
But
Yeah.
doesn't that make
Oh,
it
it's the
more
cactus flower or
accessible
whatever.
by nature? Like, isn't it
Right.
more accessible in that sense? I mean, I think the reason why they were given such a surface level script on some level is like, if you dive too deep in, you might lose people.
Right.
Yeah, because then you'll discover that the temple came from masonry. And
Right.
that leads you down a path that they don't want members to go. And
They
so,
don't want you to talk about that.
Yeah,
Which is kind of deceptive.
And it's kind of like if your best symbolism for your religion is the cactus flower, like I thought we talked more about African wood and cactus
And
flowers
cactus
than
flowers,
Jesus
yes.
Christ.
Yep.
Like I think that was mentioned and highlighted more than Jesus himself.
Yep.
It just felt empty to me.
Yeah.
Which is I'm sure unsurprising to the members watching because of course we're all
Of course
spiritually
we would
empty
think that,
here.
Look at these eyes.
Hollowed out
And
souls over
no.
here.
Yeah.
No light in them.
So the next place we went was the endowment room, which really is the crown jewel, in my opinion, of the temple because it's the most strange and out there. That's the green apron. That's the picture I took that was in the Wall Street Journal that all the members were so upset about. And I think by far it is the most secretive aspect. And the 12-year-olds definitely not allowed to go in there.
No.
Right. There are some very specific things in the endowment room that are related to the endowment ceremony, which are usually pretty hush-hush. But when we went in, we were talking to the gentleman that was in there, and he was actually pretty forthcoming with some of the stuff that goes on during the endowment ceremony. Even more, I feel, even more forthcoming than my own temple preparation class was. Because when I did that, they didn't talk about how there are 5 covenants that you make or even what they really are covenanting in. And he didn't really go too far into it. Like when he brought up the law of chastity, he was pretty nondescript and just like being morally clean.
morally clean.
Yeah. I was like, is that what chastity means?
It's actually a little bit more
interesting.
explicit than that. And the law of consecration, I was really kind of surprised that he even was willing to bring that one up because it's kind of sinister when you
Yeah.
think about it. But there were some other things that obviously he's not going to talk about, the signs or the tokens like this one that I have depicted on my arm, because those are the ones that they've sworn, basically, especially a man of his age has sworn at the threat of death to never divulge to anyone who is not already a part of that in-group.
But maybe that's the strategy, though, is because of like people like you and us who talk about these things, and because it's one of the more talked about ex-Mormon kind of concepts because of its
Strangeness.
like bizarreness.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's part of it is like, can we start to like slowly reveal a little bit more about this in a way that's still not threatening to anything that they feel is like sacred, but it's still like, see, we're not being that secretive about it. We kind of talk about it.
Yeah, it's like I said at the beginning, they kind of dance around it. Like they'll, like for example, whenever you get married in the temple, you kneel at an altar across from your spouse or whatever, and your soon-to-be spouse, and you do the patriarchal grip, which is what his tattoo is, and you do that secret handshake, and then as you do the handshake, somebody marries you. The man from the temple was like, yeah, like when I got married in the temple, I took my wife by the right hand, and we got married, and it was so beautiful. And I was like, I feel like describing the patriarchal grip as holding hands.
So, like holding somebody's hand.
Right.
It's
Like
definitely not.
Yeah, it's like a token, a secretive token that you learned during your endowment about how you're going to become a king and queen in heaven someday. So to describe it so like, oh, like lovingly, like we were just holding hands. It was so sweet. It's like, to me, almost does feel more sinister because they're just simply not telling you the whole truth and they're making it sound like it's something it's not because they weren't just holding hands. They were doing a token of the Melchizedek priesthood. And the same, like he was like, this is an instruction room. Like it's kind of like a classroom. There's an audio visual presentation and it's all very like, it's not factually incorrect. It's just that they're withholding
Kind
information.
of like half truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the half truths, it's like so interesting to see them describe it without talking about what it actually is.
Mm-hmm.
Just to drive home the point that it's not just holding hands. Patriarchal grip is the short version of the name of the token. The real name of the token is the second token of the Melchizedek priesthood, the sure sign of the nail,
It's very
or the
specific.
patriarchal grip
Like
Yeah.
the nail that was in Jesus'
wrist. So it is like really weird to think about like, oh, I'm taking Jordan by the hand. And we have to remember that they put nails through Jesus's wrist that were all bloody.
Well, and I missed the part where you like accidentally shake someone's hand in the patriarchal grip. Like, how do you accidentally
Right.
Yeah, and also when we exited the endowment room, basically they have you go around the room and then go into the celestial room. So during the actual ceremony, the participants you stand at a veil, you do the patriarchal, you do the different grips, you do the different handshakes, you say some code words, and if you do them correctly, then the man on the other side of the curtain who represents God pulls you through the curtain. And so they showed us the other side of the curtain where the men are meant to stand. And I'll put, there's no pictures of it online, but I'll put a little illustration here of what it looks like. But it's basically like these long curvy bars where I guess the men stand and they basically have a little hammer. They showed this in Big Love, like ding, ding,
Little mallet.
ding. What is wanted? They have the whole like exchange there, but I feel like also just seeing the place where they go through the veil and seeing the bars from top to like from floor to ceiling, it was just like, I'm sure, like, I just kept having the same recurring thought, which is like, like, this is so odd.
This is so bizarre.
They absolutely did not need to have that door open to show people inside. It was really
It's like you
interesting
have
that
no
they even-
context as a non-member to what
It's
that
like-
even is.
Is that where they're doing the pole dancing? Or
It did kind of look like, I don't know, like,
Just
how
like-
often do you see floor to ceiling poles? Like,
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
very often.
Yeah.
So then they're like, have you seen the wood from Africa, though? It's like, what is going on?
Don't mind the poles
don't
over
look in
here.
there. There's no wood from Africa in there.
And then we passed that little open door and we went into the celestial room. So this is a picture of the celestial room. There was a woman standing out in the front who basically said a little spiel.
Mm-hmm.
But then once we entered, it was totally silent.
They gotta
And-
have like some soundproofing in those doors or something, right? Because it was quiet.
It was so quiet. And all I could picture was like people whisper talking while wearing bonnets and like green aprons, like how it actually is when you go into the celestial room.
Right.
How did you all feel going in there?
It is kind of interesting because usually when they're doing the celestial rooms now, they're almost always like the most interior room in the
Center,
in the temples, and I feel like that kind of adds this extra like separation from the outside world where it's like you can't hear anything that's going on outside, nobody can hear you scream.
no.
And
eerily
things
quiet.
of that nature, which I think in a temple like this, it's like kind of weird because there's no windows. And I've been in other ones, like the temple in Honduras has stained glass windows, but you get the nice light from the outside. So it has these like freakishly tall ceilings and a giant chandelier in the middle. And I'm sure you're going to put images of what it looks like and everything like that. But is it more well appointed than the rest of the temple? I don't really necessarily, aside from the
chandelier.
the large chandelier, I don't think it really is. It's kind of like the same motifs. There's more couches that you can lounge around in after you've been spiritually drained by the weird experience that you just had.
Well, and it's so eerily quiet, and it always makes me think, like, when I went through the temple for the first time and was literally confused by everything that had happened. Like, they tell you that you can talk about it in the celestial room. Like, you can ask questions and things and talk about it in the celestial room, but that's, like, the only place that you can talk about it. And it's not like, the irony isn't lost on me now that I think about that. And I'm like, it is really, really awkward to talk in the celestial room, because even though you can, like, whisper in there, nobody is talking in there. So, like, if you're like, hey, what's the green apron? People in the other, like, everybody's going to be looking at you. So, like, it is not a welcoming environment to, like, bring up those things and talk about them. And, like, everybody's just sitting there in their weird clothes. And it's just, like, I can't remove that from the experience. You know?
You feel, like, so deflated sitting there in your outfit. Like, what? Like,
Right.
Are we a cult?
That's exactly it.
And I feel like one of the most common things people say when you get into the celestial room, especially when you're new to this ceremony, is like, this is what heaven will feel like.
Yes.
And it's like a lobby.
Get me out.
Like a hotel.
Why am I here?
It's like nice enough, but it's also like, I don't know. Like, if I had to design my own heaven, like, I don't think that this is like what I don't think I want to wear a green apron in heaven.
No.
It feels like that sitting room that your friend's parents had in their house that nobody was allowed to set foot into. Like, it does not feel like a place where you can relax.
Yeah. And the other thing they say is just keep coming because you'll get used to it eventually. You'll understand the significance eventually, which you never do. You just get desensitized to how weird it is.
And then you make up your own interpretations of whatever.
That was also the one room where there was a man giving us a very dirty look.
Yes, it was a very weird feeling in there.
Other than the man at the front who chastised you for
having my phone,
your phone with the tickets, he was giving us such a dirty look, and I was like, I don't like. For us, I'm like, maybe that he's just like recognizing us. We also at one point had a security guard come in and stand next to us for a little bit and then leave, and they didn't say anything, so like we can read into it to wonder what they were doing, but
it was uncomfortable.
He was giving us such a dirty look, and we weren't being loud.
No,
of course not.
No,
we were just like
taking it in
around.
You know,
I don't know. It was odd to me that there's a few people who were like rude, and I was like, I don't know what.
Like what is
it because we look sinful?
They can just tell that they've picked up on it.
I can smell the alcohol in your breath.
Which another part of Mormon doctrine is the spirit of discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be that bishops or like religious leaders have the basically psychic ability to tell like your intent or if you're good or bad or sinful or whatever. And so I did also think it was funny that we just went and did that whole thing and nobody said anything. So
yeah,
like, where's the spirit of discernment to know that we were
there?
We're here for content creation.
But we're not here to cause a disruption. So.
Yeah, yes, we were very respectful to everybody we talked to. So after we went to the celestial room, we went to the bride's room, and this is the room where basically part of a temple ceremony, one of the temple ceremonies is getting married. And so they have a special room where the brides get ready for the wedding ceremony. And as just a reminder, you don't wear your wedding dress per se during the actual wedding ceremony. Instead, you wear the endowment clothing with the green apron and everything. So that's also another element of preparing in the bride's room is the changing out of your wedding dress and into your actual wedding dress, which is the ceremonial clothing. So what did you think of the bride's room?
I mean, like as usual, things with the temple are pretty extravagant and beautiful. And you've got like little etchings even into the carpet. And it's like very intense and serious. And you've got beautiful chandelier going on. I mean, it's kind of weird to me thinking back because like I remember being in the bride's room and, you know, we were in the Salt Lake Temple. So like Salt Lake Temple brides, there's like a dime a dozen on any given Saturday. So it's not like this very special sit down and take in the moment, think about it type experience.
Right.
It's like we're on a schedule. Like there's like 5 girls behind you. Let's move it along. But I get the vibe. I get that they try to make it like a little special room for your special day, I guess.
Yeah, when I got married, I remember being in the bride's room and I had we're going to talk about in a bit how growing up, we all went to these temple open houses as part of like our Mormon experience. And they'd always say during these open houses, and this is the room where someday when you get married, you'll get to come and get ready. And the bride's room was always held up as this like really important special moment for the bride. And so I remember when I went, there were 2 other brides getting ready at the same time as me. And they were there with their moms. And basically they already had all their stuff out. So I like had my little makeup bag and I didn't have a place or a mirror to sit next to. So I like on my wedding day, like standing in this little corner, like nowhere to change. And then because my mom, for whatever reason, wasn't able to like, she was like parking the car or something, someone else helped me get into my dress. Or like get out of my wedding dress and into my temple robes. And also there's no photography in the temple. So like, you know, so many women have these beautiful photos of them getting into their wedding dress with the mom putting the zipper up.
Yeah.
I don't have any, none, you know, between the 2 couples, me and Jackson's at home, but we don't have any photos of our actual wedding ceremony, which is just, to me, I feel robbed of that.
Yes, for real.
And in the bride's room of the Grand Junction Temple, there were 5 stalls. We went and counted 5 different stalls so that they can accommodate up to 5 brides at a time. If numbered stalls doesn't say bride factory.
I was going to say, like, let's put our stuff in our locker on our wedding day.
Like a bunch of cattle.
Yeah.
I think the bride's room is such like an eloquent representation of how women are in the church, because that's something that there's no groom's room. Like when I did it, I was just in my little stall that I would normally be getting dressed in, and I don't care, whatever. I'm a man. It's fine. But like, even though they're making such a big point, like, oh, you have like this super special day and like, this is where you're going to go and you're going to get ready to like go out and be celebrated and everything like that. And then the day comes and you're just one of the brides who is going to be getting married that day, and you better hurry up because somebody else has got to do their shit and everything.
It's actually a really sad metaphor.
It's so sad. It's just something I think about where it's like they make a huge deal about it, and then like in practice, it's actually kind of sad.
Yeah. Of all the things in a Mormon girl's life, like your wedding is the thing that you're talking about constantly.
Yeah.
And then to get there and to be like just a number. My person who married me mispronounced my name. I didn't get to wear my real wedding dress. I was rushed. Like multiple people came up and were like, we're a little bit behind schedule here at the temple today. So like, we're going to need to like hurry and cut it a little short. And if your family isn't here, we'll have to just like go ahead with the ceremony without your family.
Oh my goodness.
And they give you a very short window to finish the entire thing. And then obviously we didn't even talk about the fact that a lot of your family who aren't Mormon are just sitting in the parking lot.
They're outside.
My grandma had to just sit outside after driving all the way from Albuquerque. She's just like sitting in the parking lot. And I have these pictures of like going up and giving her a hug after my wedding. And it looks so nice. And I'm like, actually, that was like such a sad moment, because it's like, this is like the moment where I get to acknowledge the fact that I just got married with my grandma because she didn't get to be there.
Yeah.
And so I'm like greeting her as a married woman, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I do feel like the bride's room is like so sickly sweet. Even the fact that they have like they had 2 big vanities where the women can prepare to get married. And I was like, because in the photos, which I'll show here, they just photograph one of the vanities. But there are 2 big opulent like areas, because they're obviously showing like 2 brides will be getting ready in this room at a time.
On the same day.
And it's just so not special.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
It's shit.
I don't want to talk to another bride on my wedding day.
Well, it's not. It doesn't feel personal. Like, it doesn't feel personal at all when you're like, cool, there's this random person that I don't even know that's behind me, and it's also getting ready on her wedding day. Like, that's not unique.
Yeah. And they pin the little yellow.
Yes, you get your little yellow paper on you, which is
like they pin yellow printer paper to your dress. And you're like,
very wedding chic. You're something yellow.
So cute.
That was another room where she mentioned the stitching on the floor. She was like, and the floor has like hand stitching. And I asked her a follow-up question, and she was like,
I don't know.
Great. Which is such a funny thing, because usually as a human being, if someone is like excited to tell you something, it's because they
know a lot.
They really are inherently interested in the subject.
Yes.
And it was just such a strange like human to human interaction and to multiple times be like, oh, you seem, actually legitimately interested in this. I'd love to hear you explain more. And like nothing.
They're like, I don't know, actually.
Right.
There's no additional information given.
Nope.
We didn't mention it because it's kind of inconsequential, but there's a desk where you can borrow temple clothes. And I asked the lady jokingly, because you could see that there was a laundry area. I was like, oh, well, how big are the washing machines here? She was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, did you guys have a tour before you were set up? Because I feel like you could just glance at one.
No, they told
she
them
was
flowers
like,
and Africa. Those were the two things that they got
Come
taught.
on.
Which I'll say, like, this is one of my things that why I hate the church so much more than the members, because I feel like the members are actually showing up. These are older people who are for free, spending their entire day giving tours. They're the ones who are actually enriching the church, whereas the church is like just relying on this free labor to show up and do all of these things. So they're not hiring professional tour guides who, a lot of churches, they have people who are paid to be preachers or pastors or youth leaders. And the church is just like, we are going to have everyone do it for free. And so it just means that you have these very earnest people who are showing up and trying their darndest to like put their best foot forward. But because the church is so far removed from enriching the membership, it's like basically kind of like amateur hour, which is not to discount these people for showing up and trying to represent their belief, but more to criticize the church for not actually doing enough to support the local membership to be able to execute this very well.
And it's not just like a nitpick out of like, oh, they could totally do this. Because going off of like, if you're, for example, you visited Temple Square, a lot of these questions that we are asking, they are briefed on questions like that. Like if you go and tour the conference center, they'll tell you about the king trusses that hold up the whole fucking building and how they're like an engineering marvel, which is objectively true. So it's not like just like this little nitpicky thing. It just kind of shows how the people are really kind of disconnected from the whole process of the construction of the building and everything. And they're brought in. They're given a few talking points, and then like they're not really able to get into anything more than just here's the building.
Yeah, and I think they're nervous to say
which is
something
fine.
They shouldn't.
Exactly.
I mean, in my ward, we'd have people like the members brought the bread, and if you taught a youth group, you would bring your own crayons and paper. Like this is the experience of the church. That's why the church has amassed, in my opinion, this much money is in some part because they don't enrich the membership back by like allowing them to like be paid for some of their labor or have some supplies or like giving missionaries a nice place to live. It's like that's why I think it's so cruel that they just throw these people in here and expect them to be able to do this well, when the church very well could do a lot more to support and put their best foot forward. But instead we just have these people who are like, I don't really know.
Here's what they told me to say.
And it just makes me kind of sad for them.
Yeah.
Next we went to the ceiling room, which is where the weddings happen. And this is a picture of it. Basically, lots of chairs surrounding an altar. This is where that man from the endowment room had said he got married, talked about holding hands, holding his wife's right hand. I'll also show here a video of what it actually looks like when the people are in the temple getting married. But what did you all think of the ceiling room?
It's more of the same, where it's almost like you've been in one and you've been in all of them, which again, it's kind of like probably part of the idea. But when you're supposed to have like this super special day, and it's not just for living people getting married, they also, just like they do the baptism for the dead, they do sealings for the dead. So you would just go in there with your spouse or someone of the opposite gender, and you would do this vicariously for people that are dead. But like kind of like the whole rhetoric of the church surrounding like temple marriage and putting so much value on a temple marriage and it being the utmost important like ideal in Mormonism, because it's the only way that you can achieve the highest form of exaltation, to have something that's just so cookie cutter.
Yeah, it feels very corporate.
Yeah.
Like not cozy, not personal, not
right.
special. It just feels like you're walking into like And it's not like you can go decorate, like, most wedding venues, when you get married, you get to decorate it. You get to plan like what lighting you want and what flowers you want in the room. And like the temple it's so impersonal. And I think that that's another reason why when I see or go to like non-Mormon weddings, I'm like, this is so much more just personal and human, and
the
feels
detail,
like we're really celebrating these two people rather than like noting that I feel like the Mormon wedding ceremony is all about the doctrine and the religion, and it has nothing to do with the person who's actually experiencing the event.
Yes, exactly.
And it's it's just very impersonal.
Yeah. Well, it isn't. It's very, I mean, it's textbook, like just as are like all the ceremonies really within the temple. But I remember when we got married and it was like, the sealer sat us down outside of the room and was like, make sure that you do not say I do. You say yes. That's what you're supposed to do. And it's like, there's no personal touch to it.
Right.
There's no even intimacy. It's just very robotic, and like it's not how most people I think want to remember their wedding day. Like when you think about people who do vows and they're very personal, and like you're not getting that experience.
It's a very prescribed experience.
Yeah.
And just like we were talking about with the bride's room, it's just you go in, they do the thing for you. There's no personalization really, and then you move on, and
that's it.
I feel like it's so. Like, not even being able to wear your own wedding dress to me is also... And same with suits. Like, the men can't wear their wedding suits. They have to change into white.
Yeah.
So both couples, it's like this charade almost where you have this entire ceremony, or this, like, you're, like, kind of being normal outside the temple.
Yeah.
You get to have maybe a ring ceremony and some dancing and a little party. No alcohol, though. Meanwhile, when you are inside, it's like it's devoid of a lot of the meaning that you've seen marriages have growing up.
Yeah.
It's not to say that people don't find meaning, because I think a lot of people are able to find it's, especially for like us, where we were able to be married in a very historic building that was built over the course of 40 years. It's very prominent in this.
Were married there,
yeah, my parents, my grandparents were also sealed in there. But then like the experience of people going to these new temples, it's like there's no history, there's no real story to go along with it. It just seems kind of, I don't know, hollow, I guess.
Like jumping through hoops.
And then because Salt Lake is so meaningful, everybody wants to get married there, which is why it's like it's so fascinating and dystopian to go sit outside of the exit of the temple on like a Saturday, because every 15 minutes a new bride is coming out.
Exactly.
And the family literally has like somebody go in and like coordinate, okay, we're expecting them at 12:45. So like the family huddles up, celebrates the exit, and then like immediately fucks off.
On to the next one.
Because then the next family has to come gather up around the entrance. The photographer has to come.
When you're on limited time for pictures.
You only have 15 minutes. And then like, I mean, I had one friend that she has like a bride in the background of one, like some of her wedding photos, because there's just other brides taking photos on that day. And it's so weird.
Well, there's pressure. It's like, get it done. And like, usually for wedding photos, sometimes it takes a while. You have a lot of family.
Yeah.
There's certain shots you want. And it's like, ours was like, our poor photographer was like, hey, we got 15 minutes. Like, everybody cooperate. Let's go.
Right.
These poor Utah wedding photographers.
Yes.
Like, wedding photography out here is
ringer.
a different nature.
It really is.
I also thought it was funny whenever we were getting the tour, there was a lady who said like, she asked why we were there, and we said, oh, we grew up in the church. We were curious to see. And she was like, well, I think it's smart to come before you've made the commitment.
Huh?
Okay.
She's just said it with such gravity, like it was like this really intense, almost scary thing. Like, well,
it's very serious.
Once the temple is dedicated, this is not a place for the weak.
Not for you.
Or halfway spiritual. And I know we touched on it earlier, how we went to temple tours a little bit growing up. Do you all have distinct memories from those, or how maybe going to a temple tour as a member differs from going as a ex-member?
I can speak more to the going as a young member who hadn't experienced the temple as opposed to going as an adult, because like before you know anything, like before you reach the age where you're allowed to really enter the temple, it's just like this kind of nebulous idea, because some of like the key things are taken out of it. You don't know about the audio-visual presentation. Yeah. You don't know that they kneel at this altar. There's like a couple we didn't really mention it, but there's an altar in the endowment room, and the guy that was in there didn't really make any explanation
I
of it.
asked about it, and he was like,
and usually on that altar, there's like a set of scriptures and things that the guy who is leading the whole situation holds up and everything like that. So like seeing it kind of stripped down of all the extra kind of items that are required for the rituals or the ceremonies, whatever you want to call them, it has no like special esoteric meaning to them. So it's just kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like touring a really nice building. But then after you have received your endowment or you've been sealed in the temple, I feel like it's more exciting because you're like, oh, I know something maybe other people don't. And you kind of, at least when I did it, I had this kind of feeling of superiority. Like, oh, I can't tell you that. It is too sacred and you're not ready for it.
Well, and I think it almost ruined, like for me, it almost ruined it because my family held the temple in such high esteem when I was growing up, and it was such a reverent thing, and it was so magical and mystical and like this whole thing. So by the time I actually went through the temple, I had built it up in my head to like this huge experience. And then you go through it and I was like, oh my God, what the hell have I just done? And so it was interesting because I almost felt like I had more like respect and appreciation and reverence toward it before I actually knew what we were doing.
Yeah. I mean, you grow up singing, I love to see the temple. There's so many little temple primary songs you start singing when you're like 2 or 3 that I feel the same exact way. I mean, we had pictures of temples in every room. I had a huge, growing up, you know, maybe someone watching this had like a band poster. I had a temple poster growing up. And I would like fantasize about, when I did my temple tours when I was a kid, I would like fantasize about like someday I will be old enough and like ready to enter here. And I need to keep myself worthy so that when the time comes, I can go to the temple and partake of the covenants that I'll make here. And I had a very magical sensibility about it. And then so when you go and you sit there and you're like holding a man's hand through a curtain and doing the group chanting, it's like, this really wasn't what I had
built
up in my mind at all. As a kid too, I even I fully, like, I was so bought in, like I fully believed that I might see Jesus. Like I remember like being, especially doing baptisms for the dead, like no joke, I would like go like do this around a corner. Because I was like,
that's so funny,
thinking maybe I'll catch Jesus, you know? Or I'll like catch an angel walk, because people would also say that they see like the spirits of their ancestors there. So I'd be like looking in the rafters like, where's the ghost? Like,
literally, yes.
And
I was the same way.
Can't say I ever saw anybody.
No.
But I think that that's how much I believed that this like was the conduit to heaven. And so I think that that's why people can't always comprehend why the endowment was so disappointing, because you're going from this otherworldly belief that this is the holiest place on earth to doing just like a shitty Masonic ceremony where like it's like ripped off of masonry and devoid of like meaning or like you don't even know what it means because it's so also removed from the rest of Mormonism. There's like not even an echo. I mean, even when I went through, I was like, Satan speaks more during the audiovisual presentation than Jesus. Like there's more scenes with Satan than Jesus. I'm like, why is there more Satan in the temple than Jesus?
Doesn't make any sense.
So yeah, I also felt it was a huge letdown.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird because on the outside of the temple, there's almost not really like a big emphasis on the supernatural or like mysticism or anything of that nature. But it's almost like you take that away because like it's God's house and supposedly God can visit there sometimes. And there have been stories of like high up Mormon leaders who have been visited by Jesus in the temples and things of that nature. So like there's almost more permission for things to be more along the lines of the supernatural or like experiencing the presence of spirits or anything like that. Because I feel like generally, I don't know about your experience, but generally the Mormon vibe is not like, we believe in ghosts or anything like that.
Yeah, it's really
nearly as much.
It's like once, I don't know. It's like it'll come up occasionally, especially if you read the old stories of like the pioneers. When you're learning about that, they'll have older stories where a pioneer on the trek will see a spirit, and you'll hear about that in Sunday school. And then people will be like, the time of seeing angels has not passed. That's why Joseph Smith saw God and Jesus Christ and the angel Moroni. But then it's not, it's truly not like brought to the forefront in the day-to-day worship. Like Mormons, I feel like if you ask a Mormon if they believe in ghosts, they'd be like, no. And then if you were like, well, what about this story about the pioneers? And they're like, well, that's not a ghost.
Right. It's a spirit.
Different.
Right. Well, and they use this vernacular, this phrase most specifically, that the veil is very thin. The veil between this world and the spirit world is very thin in the temple because such sacred saving ordinances are happening here. So they want to be present with us or something like that. And it's just like,
well, I remember
such a strange vibe.
I remember that's part of why I wanted to get married in Salt Lake, because I can't remember which prophet it was, but one of them wrote a whole story about seeing Jesus in the Salt Lake Temple. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. So maybe we should get married there.
Yeah. I mean, we would have people tell us stories about how there would be angels or spirits in the temple. And we would talk about how, like, when you get baptized for someone, they've waited for millennia to get baptized.
And they're so grateful.
And so, like, there'd be stories about them, like, standing at the railing, like, watching their own baptism. And I do feel like they really encouraged us to kind of visualize that was definitely happening and was the case. So we finished with the sealing room. That was the last room we were in. And we walked out. And that was, then we went and walked around the grounds for a bit. And what was going through your mind as you were walking around when we finished?
One, I was worried they were going to say something. Now that we were out, I was like, okay, they might try something now. But two, just like a very big like line in the sand to me in terms of distinction of like how much of a shift and of a difference there is when you're in group versus out group, like I said at the beginning. But like the distinction in how it's not like they're necessarily making you feel unwelcome, but there is, like, when you leave the church, there is a big shift, and it's kind of a big realization of how many people are still so deeply invested and still believe so passionately about these things that now to me seems so like foreign and like not even justifiable with my logical mind anymore. But all these people are still so invested, but all these people also being so invested in something that we all believe actively harms them to some degree is like kind of a mind trip to think about it in that way.
You know, we talk a lot about all of this, and it's mostly to motivate them to be more honest, because one of the big things about the temple experience, especially when like we all experienced it, was you were really walking into it blind. And the idea of informed consent was really not there, because they didn't tell us that we were going to make these 5 really specific covenants and that they had signs and tokens associated that we were supposed to never divulge to anybody. Just at the beginning of the ceremony, they were like, are you in or are you out?
You still don't know anything yet.
You need to leave now. And then you're supposed to, like, you know, if you're out, then you're supposed to stand up in front of your family and friends and everybody that came with you to experience it for the first time. So to see them being a little more forthcoming about the things that are happening on the inside with less, like, there's still kind of like, you know, fluffy language that they use, and they try to kind of obfuscate some of the more specific things, but there's at least seeming to be a shift toward being more informed and allowing people to make their own decision before they're arriving at that point where they're like, are you in or are you out? Because if you're in, you had better buckle up and
sit in the chair. You're done.
Yeah, they truly used to say, if you stay sitting in your chair, basically, I'll put the words over the screen here, but if you stay in your chair right now, you are consenting to agree to whatever happens today. So it's basically like if someone came to you and was like, I have a huge thing to tell you, but you can't tell anyone. Will you promise me first before I tell you
that you won't get mad?
You won't be mad, or you won't like. It's like basic human logic is like, this is not ethical or fair. I feel like my biggest thought coming out of it was like, man, I feel like so much conditioning went into my brain to think that was special.
Yeah.
Like walking around and it's just like a building with some ornate finishes. And it's like, I used to like have so much religious scrupulosity about if I was worthy to enter the temple. And even when I was 12 starting baptisms for the dead, I'd be like, I thought an unkind thought this week and I'm supposed to go do baptisms for the dead and maybe I'm not worthy to go in. And like, I just feel like walking through it again, even just similar to holding the temple clothes. It's like, this is just fabric. This is just a building. It's not any more special than any other building I might walk into. I respect their right to practice their religion and all, and I think that's important. But for me personally, I feel like seeing it now in this way, and also just being like, wow, I was so nervous to go into that, like, and kind of revisiting this feeling of like, I'm an outsider and they're gonna know. And I think it just shows like how far removed maybe I am now to go back in and to no longer have this sense of special feeling. I also last night was looking through some of the threads about this. I thought it was interesting that there's a Facebook group and they invite like state representatives or people from the government. They invite other faiths and they made sure to interview them and then post it on the Facebook, which I thought was an interesting, like, to invite someone to come see it. And then obviously the people said they would do the video and the people were very complimentary, but I think just the PR machine of having this temple open house and having articles about it and having members out and the big banner in the front, it just, I think, is interesting to see how they're using this as a missionary event, basically, to get people interested in the church. And there was a Reddit thread, and I'll read you the Reddit thread because I thought it was really funny. So this is a Reddit thread from a year ago. So the temple was still being built at this time. And it says, does anyone know what that goddamn evil-looking eyesore building they are making on the horizon and the 12th roundabout is going to be? It looks like if a bank committed tax fraud and embezzlement all at the same time, and if that was an architectural style, basically. And
oh my God. That's such a read.
Yeah. And some people are like, it's all of those things, actually.
By the way.
And there's so much opposition, I think, in different small communities to temples. I have to say the Grand Junction Temple is very in your face as far as like where it's placed within the town. It's a very small town. So to have this pretty massive religious building that's on a main road, you can see why people on Reddit are like, what is happening in my little small city? Grand Junction it was not a big town.
No.
I'm curious to hear what you guys have seen online about like opposition to temples being built and why you think that's becoming a more common phenomenon.
There have been a lot of incidents recently with towns, and Texas comes to mind, but a lot of people are kind of getting wise to the fact that they don't want religion coming in and building essentially what is an eyesore in a lot of cases, because they function as an advertisement for the church, in effect, because people, a lot of times, they're building this in sight of an interstate in this community in hopes that people be like, well, what the hell is that over there?
And they leave the lights on all night.
They leave the lights on all night.
Super
and
bright.
People will come and look at that. And when people are already clued in, like all the rest of the people in the community are just at the whim of the church. And yep, this is just what we have now. Specifically in Utah, they kind of have this idea built up around temples, how they like increase property values and they're a welcome feature of the community. In reality, that's just the Mormon lens that they're viewing this through, because usually in Utah, they're taking a generally undeveloped area, they plop a temple down, and then all of these luxury developers will come in and they'll build big houses around them. And we're kind of seeing it in these other communities where things start to pop up and there's opposition. We don't want them to have a 120-foot tall spire on top of their church building, or
lighting up our whole neighborhood like
night.
A damn star. Like,
yeah, a lot of people move to these remote areas because they love the night sky and it's significant light pollution.
Significant.
And I think people are annoyed that they can't even go in. I mean, after the dedication, they have this massive religious building that almost none of the population of the town will be able to even go into.
Well, that's my thought. Like, where's the community value in something like this?
Yeah, I mean, at least you're permitted to go to a church service, but to have what becomes probably the most notable architectural feature of your town, and most of your town isn't even allowed to go in.
Yeah.
And then you want to build a spire super high. There
Right.
was one case where they put a balloon up to show how high the proposed spire was. And you could see that there's like almost nothing around. So it's just going to be just this massive Mormon temple that no one can go into. And they're trying to say that the steeple height is like part of the religious value or whatever, which it's obviously not. And so, yeah, I just thought that Reddit post was interesting because I think the opposition is in large part because it's like this massive part of the town and most people aren't even allowed to go inside, and specifically not considered worthy to go inside. That's even the terminology used by the church. We're not worthy, the three of us, not worthy to enter. And so I think that it also is just a turnoff to the community because it's a very us versus them building to have in a small town. Thank you all so much for watching. As I said, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I have a new video about the Mormon church or doctrine or pop culture every single week. As I also said, there is a video already posted over on Jordan and McKay's channel called Viral Virtue. We also got into more specifics about the temple and commonly asked questions that people have across the internet. That video is already posted over there, so definitely feel free to check out that link in the description and continue the party over on their channel. Thank you all so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you. I feel like I'm on your channel because we're at your house.
Right?
But thanks for going and touring the temple.
What an adventure we had.
Yeah, we like met up around noon and then drove back to Denver for 4 hours. And
It was a party.
It was. We had fun.
best friends at this point. So, but yeah, see you all next week. Thank you so much for watching and talk to you soon.